Great.
Hello.
So go ahead, Andy, and introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name's Andrew Saunders. I'm Associate Director for Client Success here at Advarra. As Rebecca had said, I am primarily working with institutional clients. And so what I intend to do today is to show you how to navigate the Kirby platform as well as answer questions relating to general workflows when working with Advarra.
And we welcome everyone to today's session. I'm Rebecca Florestella. I'm the Assistant Director for Reliance and Regulatory Management. And any questions regarding this presentation or our Reliance program at UCLA can be directed to irbReliance@research.ucla.edu.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So how I plan to navigate this discussion is I'm going to show a few slides that's going to show the workflow of an initial submission when you're making an investigator application to Advarra, some best practices, and then how to communicate with Advarra. Once I've gone through those slides, I'm going to go through the registration process for using Kirby, and then go through an actual application in the Kirby platform. And then after that, I'm going to go through how to navigate Kirby. And then after that, we'll have a question and answer session. I'm going to try to do this quickly so you have plenty of time to ask your questions. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and open my PowerPoint. Let's see if I can full screen this. Can everyone see this okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I apologize, I went too many slides. I'm just going to go up. Here we go. All right, so this is the workflow of an initial submission. I've included the actual application into Kirby itself with some general requirements of items that need to be included with your investigator application, which includes the CV for the PI. I understand that UCLA has some specific requirements when it comes to language that must be a part of the informed consent. So you'll want to make sure that you obtain a copy of the template consent form from your sponsor contact and track any required language onto that document. And that can be uploaded at the end of the application, which we'll see in just a moment when we go through the Kirby application. And then also the external review accepted letter, which I'll also show you where that needs to be uploaded in Kirby. Once you've made your application in the system, the designated coordinator for Advarra will then analyze the submission, make sure there aren't any questions regarding the responses on the application, and then also ensure all the necessary uploaded documents are present so that we can move forward with the review. If there are any follow-up questions, those will be sent to you via email through the Kirby platform, and then you can respond back to any of those questions back to the Advarra coordinator using Kirby, and that'll send an email to them directly. If we don't receive a follow-up response, typically an automatic follow-up will be sent on a weekly basis until we get those needed responses so that we can then schedule the item for board review. We'll then schedule the item for board review. In some circumstances, the board may find something that they need clarification on in order to conduct their review. In those cases, you would receive an additional follow-up if there were any follow-ups that were sent during the original analysis. If there aren't any follow-up questions from the board, they will conduct their review, provide the determination to the Advarra coordinator, who will then communicate that to your team. Along with the board's determination, if they've made any changes to the consent forms, those will be sent to you as well from the Advarra coordinator through Kirby via an email. If you have additional revisions that need to be made to your consent form, you can then send those back to the coordinator, and then it would go back to the process of administrative review, scheduling for board review, and then the communication of the determination post-review. Once the consent form is acceptable, if you've received the communication, the consent forms look acceptable as is, you can confirm with your Advarra coordinator that you've reviewed the consent forms, and the approval may be issued. At that point, the Advarra coordinator will then send the approval notice as well as the consent forms to our QC department. We'll analyze the document to make sure everything is present on the approval letter and that it's in line with what was determined during the board review. At which point they'll let the coordinator know that the approvals may be posted, at which point you'll receive an email notification letting you know that your approval documents have been posted to Kirby. And then here I've included a slide that just shows the estimated turnaround times for each process when you're making your initial submission. So you've made your initial submission. We, best case scenario, anticipate that the Advarra coordinator can make their analysis within a business day. Sometimes it can take a couple of business days, but you'll usually receive any clarification questions within that time frame. And once we receive your sign off, we can then schedule that for board review. Once we have any necessary clarification responses, the board review turnaround time is typically about 2 business days. Then from that point, we'd send you that board determination communication. And if additional revisions are needed for those consent forms, that again would go back to that first blue field here, the 1 business day for analysis, and then again back for board review for an additional couple of days. We give the board a couple of days to make their determinations, and then back to you for the board's determination. And if the consent forms are acceptable as is, it typically takes about 1 to 2 business days for the QC department to make their confirmation that the approval letter is acceptable as is. And at that point, we can post the approval letters. And then here is a slide that shows just some best practices when making your initial submission. These are things that can increase the speed of the turnaround of your submission. So the 3 main points are having a finalized subject compensation budget. That will be necessary as part of your application. In fact, it's a question that's in the investigator application. And so that'll need to be determined before you begin your application to Advarra. If you have that, that's a big plus, and that can reduce the turnaround time and clarifications that are sent to your institution. The next item is site ICF edits. And so we understand that institutions have required language, and this isn't really what we're talking about when we're talking about minimizing unique language. What we're talking about more is wordsmithing. So if you incorporate your institution's required injury language or compensation language or HIPAA, that's normal. We expect that. But when it's something that maybe grammatical preference, things like that, and where there's a significant number of changes to the approved template, that can require additional review and slow down the process of the review. And you can obtain the protocol, the Word copy of the most current approved consent template, as well as the sponsor's approval letter from your sponsor contact. And then follow-up questions is the other item that can increase the speed of the turnaround, which means that if the Advarra coordinator is following up with you for a specific question on the application, or if the board has determined that they need additional information and a deferred review of your site in order to obtain that information, the faster that we can get those responses, the quicker we can get it sent back for review. And then my final slide is just who to contact. So your first point of contact is going to be your Advarra coordinator. They're the person who's looking at your study day to day. They know the most about the study and the single point of contact. So the easiest way to contact them is by selecting the Contact IRB link in Kirby. By using that specific link, which I'll show you when we go through the demo of Kirby, you can send an email directly to your Advarra contact. It only goes to that person, and it'll actually include the study you're specifically referencing in your question. If for whatever reason it's an urgent follow-up request and email's just not fast enough, you can reach out to them directly via email, and their name and contact information is listed in the Kirby record, so you can reach out to them via telephone. And then if it's an escalated situation, you can always reach out to the client success team, which includes myself. And you can reach my entire team at institutions@advarra.com. And so, again, you can first reach out via contact IRB, contact your coordinator via telephone or email. And then again, if you need to escalate anything, please feel free to reach out to our team at institutions@advarra.com. So with that said, that is the slideshow that I had for you. I'm going to go ahead and now jump into the Kirby demonstration itself, and we're going to begin with the actual registration of a Kirby account. So this is the Advarra website. It's www.advarra.com. You can access Kirby by selecting the login link on the upper right-hand side. So if we select this down arrow, it'll be the first link you see, IRB Kirby login. So we'll go ahead and select that. And so on the left-hand side of the page, there's a link that says, do you need to register or sign up? You want to go ahead and select that. And here you'll just be asked to complete this form, which just asks for your contact information and the organization you are affiliated with. Once you've completed this form, you can click the register button at the bottom. You'll receive a notification typically within 24 hours from our Kirby team, and they'll provide you with a temporary password, at which point you can then log in for the first time. Once you've logged in for the first time, you can then create a permanent password and you'll be able to access Kirby moving forward. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you Kirby itself. So this is the Kirby dashboard, and I'm going to go through each of the navigation tabs. The first is the My Studies tab. And essentially what this is a listing of any studies that you're affiliated with in the system. So if you've started an application or if someone has associated your account with a study, you'll be able to see those studies under your specific registered account. So this ID number is how Advarra identifies a site in the system. You can always provide us with the name of the PI, the study title, the protocol number, but it's just a little faster to find you in the system if you provide us with this SSU number, because we can easily misspell the name of a PI, or we can put in a wrong thing grammatically for a study title. If we miss a comma, it just won't show up in the search engine. I mean, eventually we would find it, but for efficiency purposes, we typically will ask for the SSU number, which is the ID number we associate with a given investigator application. Then there's the name of the submission, the date that it was submitted or modified, the type of submission, these are site submissions, and then the state. You'll notice that a number of these show pre-submission. If you've started an application, but you have not sent it to Advarra yet, they'll show up in pre-submission status. Now we can organize these columns by selecting the links at the top of the section. So I'm going to take a look at an approved state submission. So I'll click the state button here. And see, you'll see one that says administrative review. That means the application's been received and is being analyzed. And then a couple of examples of approved site submissions, and then one that's been reviewed and is in post-review status. So the next tab is the items pending your action. So the dashboard provides a global view of Kirby. So after we've gone through the investigator application, I'll show you where you can find the clarification questions specific to a given study. But if you're associated with a number of different sites in Kirby, you'll have access to a number of different follow-ups that may be pending for the given studies that you're associated with. So again, this is a global view, but we will look specifically at individual studies after we've gone through the application. So let's say you're affiliated with 10 different studies and there are 10 different clarifications or 15 clarifications that are pending for the different studies that you're affiliated with. Those would all be visible here under the items pending your action. Next, we have items pending IRB review. If there's no follow-up for your application, your investigator application is being prepped and is going to be sent for review shortly. It'll show up here under the items pending IRB review. The next tab is not really applicable because it's more intended for submissions for protocols themselves, but I will say the Archive Studies tab is where you'll be able to find any studies that you're affiliated with that have closed. So you've submitted your termination report, study is closed out. You'll still be able to access that study for 2 years in Kirby after the closeout, and it just won't appear under your My Studies tab. It'll be under the Archive Studies tab. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the investigator application. So for multi-site studies, you're going to want to select the top option here, which is I'm a clinical research site that is joining a multi-site study. Then you'll hit the continue button. The first question you're going to be asked is who is the investigator for your submission? The investigator will need to have a registered Kirby account. As a designee for the site, you will be able to register an account for the investigator. They will not be required to go into the system and register their own account. But once the investigator has a registered account, you will be able to indicate them as the investigator for your submission in this section here. So I'm just going to type in a name. I have a couple of options here. I can select the person who's affiliated with my organization who has that same name. Next, you'll provide the protocol title. This is how we're going to be able to associate your application with the approved study. Once you've completed that section, you'll be asked to provide a protocol number. Sometimes there isn't a protocol number for the study. If there is not a protocol number for the study, you can simply put not applicable. Next, we have the investigational research locations and subject recruitment. Do you want to submit sub-investigator information for IRB review? We note that this is not an IRB requirement. If your institution has this as a requirement, you're more than welcome to request that we review your sub-investigators, but just know this is not something that Advarra requires. If you would like to add an additional individual to your submissions, let's say you have a team member who is going to be completing another section of the application, but you're the individual who's starting the application, you can add them by selecting the add link here. They'll need to be registered for an account in Kirby in order for you to add them, but if they are registered, similar to the investigator portion, you'll just type in their name here. Their name will appear in the dropdown. You'll select the individual, then indicate their role. If none of these apply, you can indicate other and then specify their role here. Then you can edit their permissions for the application. Let's say you want them to be able to review the application, but you don't necessarily want them to make any edits. You can indicate no here, they don't need to edit the application, or yes, they can go ahead and edit the application. And then should this person be copied on emails regarding the application, and you can indicate yes or no there. Then you can select OK, and then that additional individual will appear here under your name. Or if you're going to add multiple individuals, you'd say OK and then add another, and then complete this form for the other individuals who will need access to your application. Next, you'll be asked to add your research location. As UCLA has worked with Advarra significantly, you will see a number of addresses listed here for your organization. If the specific research location that's going to be taking part in the study is not listed, you can always add them by selecting the Add button. You just provide us with the address, the location type, and then we ask how many years has research been conducted at this location. Then we ask about the research-related activities that will take place at this location. Do you have access to the study population? You can indicate yes or no. Is a licensed MD or DO available while subjects are being seen? And then we ask about any emergency and non-emergency medical resources that are available at this location. And then any additional resources available that are not related to emergency care that are available at this research location. And then you'll just select OK. And that research location will then become an option to select as part of your application. Next, we ask which of the following subject populations may be enrolled in this study, and then based on this study inclusion-exclusion criteria, you'll indicate which specific populations you will be enrolling. And then we ask that you confirm that you are not targeting any population for enrollment other than what is required by the study design. How many subjects are expected to be enrolled at the site? This is a ballpark, so if you don't have the exact numbers, we don't expect that. So just do your best to estimate what you expect to enroll at your site. If the sponsor has assigned you a site number for the study, please provide it here. You'll notice that there's no star next to this question, so this is an optional question. If they haven't assigned you any number, don't worry about completing that specific section. As part of the study, are you participating in a network? And you can indicate yes or no there. We give you a couple of examples such as TDN, Siren, etc. Next, we have regulatory inspection information. So we ask that you upload any information regarding regulatory inspections that have occurred at the research location or for this PI within the last 5 years. You can add that here. Has the research study or site been disapproved or withdrawn by another IRB? You can indicate yes or no there. And then if previously or currently approved by another IRB, are you requesting a transfer of IRB oversight? And you can indicate yes or no there. Next, we have conflict of interest. So we ask a number of questions which apply to both the investigator and research staff and any other person who is responsible for the design or conduct of reporting the research relating to conflict of interest. And so the first question asks, have any of the above individuals received compensation from a relevant company that when aggregated for the immediate family for prior 12 months is $5,000 or greater? And you can indicate yes or no. And then we ask a number of questions similar to that relating to stock and other potential benefits that any of the research staff may be receiving as part of their participation or conduct of the study. And then we also ask whether or not there is an in-house conflict of interest committee for your institution and whether or not they've made any specific determinations. You can indicate yes or no there. And then are you reporting an institutional conflict of interest? And you can indicate yes or no here. This specific section relates to the informed consent. So the research location that you selected under the investigational research locations portion will appear here as research location that will appear on the consent form. We ask about the phone numbers which should appear on the consent form, both the standard phone number as well as 24-hour number that will be listed on the form. Then we ask for a breakdown of subject compensation. This is what I was talking about when we were going through the slides, that this should be determined before starting the application so that you aren't stuck at this specific question because it happens quite frequently. If subjects aren't going to be compensated for their participation, you just put not applicable here. Then we ask about the timing of monetary payments. You can indicate any that apply here. Please confirm if subjects do not complete the study, they will be paid for each study visit that is completed. You can indicate yes or no there. Is there a completion bonus? Yes or no. List any visits for which subjects will not be paid. Will you need the informed consent form to be translated into another language? And you can indicate yes or no here. If you indicate yes, we just ask that you specify which language. Are you requesting a HIPAA waiver? And you can indicate yes or no here. Are you planning to use an e-consent to enroll subjects? And you can say yes or no there. Next, we have a message to the end user. This is essentially a separation between the research location questions and questions specific to the investigator. So we ask how many years of experience does the investigator have in the conduct of research? What is the investigator's national provider identifier number? What additional training certifications or degrees in the field of human research protections have been completed by the investigator? And we list a number of options here. What is the current number of research studies supervised by the investigator? What is the approximate number of active research subjects currently supervised by the investigator? How many sub-investigators with clinical trial experience are assisting the investigator? And so this is where we capture that specific. So Also, we indicated earlier that we don't require the review of the sub-investigators, but if there are sub-investigators, you can indicate that the investigator does have that support here under this question, item 4, under the investigator experience and qualifications. How many research staff members with clinical trial experience are assisting the investigator? And you can indicate that here. And then questions 4 through 9 ask about the investigator's specialties and research experience. The IRB may share this information with sponsors or organizations acting on behalf to identify investigator candidates for future research studies. And you don't have to opt into that. You can select this box here to indicate that you're opting out. Then we ask about the specialty of the investigator, and if you click this drop-down box, it provides a number of options. Any subspecialties, if you click the ellipses here, provides a number of options, and then you can click over to see even more options. What phase of research has the investigator conducted? We have a number of options here. In which therapeutic area does the investigator have research experience? And again, if you click this browse button here, it shows a number of options. And then in which following disease general areas does the investigator have research experience? We have a number of options there. And then what age groups does the investigator have research experience with? Next, we're going to go to the site and local context information. So indicate any state laws having an impact on the research at your investigational research location. You can indicate none, mandatory IRB visits, age of majority is 19, California Experimental Subjects Bill of Rights. I'm guessing you're going to want to make sure you indicate that. And then which, if any, of the following pending or ongoing actions or restrictions related to the practice of medicine or research apply at your location. And then you can indicate any that apply. What recruitment methods may be used for your site? And then you would indicate any recruitment methods you intend to use. Will you be paying any professionals for their assistance in the recruitment of potential subjects? Do any of the research locations have a local IRB? And then you'd indicate yes. And that creates a drop-down box. So it says no oversight waiver is required, an oversight waiver is attached, or we're using Smart IRB. We have a global agreement with UCLA, and so you'd indicate no oversight waiver is required. Does your site hold an FWA? You'd indicate yes, and then provide your FWA here. How would you describe the attitudes about research held by potential research subjects in your community? And then you just select the appropriate option. And has there been a recent media focus on research in your community? And then you can just indicate yes or no here. Next, we go on to the informed consent process. We include our expectations regarding the informed consent process, and you can indicate whether or not you agree with this process. If you disagree, we just ask for rationale. Do you conduct competing research studies? And you can indicate yes or no. Then please specify the location at your site where the informed consent process will be conducted. Please specify the steps taken by the investigator and authorized research staff to minimize the possibility of coercion or undue influence during the consent process. We have a number of options here. And then please specify the steps taken by the investigator and authorized research staff to ensure that the subject or their LAR is provided sufficient opportunity to consider their participation in the research. We have a number of options here, and then if you have an alternative, you can indicate other, and then specify that below. Then how will subject's data identifiers be recorded? You can either indicate this here or other, and then specify that below. Then choose all mechanisms in place to ensure the research records data will be kept to protect the privacy and confidentiality of the subjects. You just select whatever option is appropriate. And then next, we're going to the document attachment summary. Here's where you'll upload a copy of the PICV. We ask for their medical license number. And then if you have any site-specific recruitment materials or subject-facing materials, you can add those under item 5. But I would reach out to your sponsor contact to determine whether or not the material has been reviewed for all sites at the study level. Sometimes they'll submit that material on behalf of all sites, and so it'll already be approved and won't require additional review. So I would just follow up with your sponsor contact to verify what has been approved and reviewed for the study, and just let them know that you're intending to submit a specific recruitment material for review as part of your application. And then for your revised consent forms or your tract forms, you can upload those under item 5, along with your clearance letter by your local IRB, indicating that they're aware of your application and that it may be reviewed by Advarra. Next, we have the end of the application. You'll just want to select Submit Application when you're ready to send it to Advarra, and then you'll hit the Continue button. Once you've done that, you'll receive an immediate notification letting you know that your application's been received and is being processed. That's when that 1 to 2 business day analysis process will begin, and the Advarra coordinator will reach out to you within that time if there are any clarification questions pending. So now what I'd like to do is show you how to navigate the study record once you've completed your application. So go ahead and go down to an example of an approved study. So we have Donna Bendelow as the PI for this specific submission. You have the name of the PI, the protocol number, the Advarra SSU all listed at the top of the page. You have the state of the submission. So currently it shows approved. You have the protocol title. There's also a study-specific ID number, which starts with a PRO. And then here's the contact information for your Advarra coordinator. So that includes the name, phone number, and email address. And then also your expiration date for this specific study. So what I'd like to do now is just go through the navigation tabs at the specific study record. So you have your IRB issued documents. Before I actually jump into that, I am going a little bit fast just to ensure that we have time for questions, but I want to show you how I accessed this study because I just kind of clicked that and didn't really explain what I was doing. So we'll go back to the dashboard and just do that one more time. So we have both protocol and site records here. When you make your submission, you'll likely only have site records. So what you'll see at the top of your page will be these. And so you can select whatever study is appropriate. In this case, we selected this link here, which said Donna Bendelow as the PI. So I'm gonna go ahead and select that one more time just to show you what I did there. And that's how we got to this page. So the first tab that we're looking at on the study record page is the IRB issued documents tab. This tab is where all of the documents for the study will be housed, including any communications from the board, your consent forms, and your subject-facing materials. So you've got an example of a consent form here, communications from the board, which include approvals. So all those documents will be in chronological order from the bottom. So those items on the bottom will be the oldest, the items on the top will be the newest. We also have subject-facing materials, recruitment materials. If your study is enrolling non-English speakers, you'll have translated materials, and then safety reports for some of the material that was submitted at the outset of the study. As time goes on, more materials will appear under the correspondence tabs and these other tabs as the sponsor submits them, or if you make additional submissions, those will appear here as well. The next tab that I wanted to explain is the history tab. And I like this tab because it's essentially an audit trail for the study. It shows you all the activities that have occurred for this specific trial. So I'll show you an example of that right now. One of the things that I said during my slide show was that your first point of contact for the study is to contact your Advarra coordinator using the Contact IRB button. That button is right here. If you select that button, a pop-up screen will appear, and it'll allow you to send a communication directly to your Advarra coordinator for the specific study. So really all you need to do is indicate what it is you're trying to communicate. You don't have to include the protocol number. You don't even have to include your name because your account is registered under your name. And so the communication that goes to the Advarra coordinator will include both your name as well as the study that you're inquiring about. So I could say, let's look at the name of the Advarra coordinator. His name's Jay Smith. So I can say, hi, Jay. Please let me know the status of my revised ICF. That's all I need to say because Jay can then see who sent the question and for what study, and then can look into the study record to see what's happening for a modification for a revised consent form. You can also attach documents to your communications. If, say, you had a further revision that you wanted to send over to Jay, say, okay, well, actually, I have an additional document I want to upload. You can upload that here. You can also CC yourself on those communications if you say yes, and that would send an email to you as well as to Jay. So I'm going to say okay. Okay, so now we're in the history tab. You can see a record of my communication. It said IRB contacted by client, what the message was, who sent it, the date, and the time. And then Jay will be obligated to respond back to you in kind. And so you'd receive an email response back, and there would be a record of that communication. So you wouldn't have to go back into your emails and say, okay, when did I reach out to Jay? It's all documented here in the study record. Another thing you can see here under the history tab is the updates to the contacts for the study. So we have this edit site contacts button here. This is where you can add additional individuals to your study. It doesn't have to occur when you're initially making that application, as we were discussing while we were going through the investigator application. At any point in the study, if someone new comes along and is part of the study team, you can provide them with access to the study by clicking the edit site contacts button. You can easily remove individuals, or you can add them. The way you would remove an individual is simply by selecting the X button here. It'll ask you, are you sure? You'll say yes, and then they'll be removed from access to the study. To add an individual, you just select the add button, and similar to what we were looking at before, you just type in their name as long as they're registered, indicate their specific role, the permissions they should have. Are they going to be making submissions for the study? Then you'd indicate yes. Should this person be copied on emails? You can say yes or no there. And then you'd say okay, and then they would be added to the study. One more thing I want to just say about this specific field is if you want to save the updates that you've made, you have to click this OK button one more time. So let's say you added a name, you see the name here, and you think you're good. You can, if you X out, that won't be saved. You want to make sure that you hit OK to save the changes you've made. You'll see it's updating now, saving those changes, and that'll also appear under this history tab. Site contacts edited, who did it, the date, and the time. Next, we have clarifications. So these are clarifications that are specific to your initial investigator application. When we were looking at the dashboard, I went through the clarifications, which are, again, at a global view for any study that you're affiliated with in the system. These are the clarifications that are specific to this study, to this specific investigator application. So we have an example here that says, please clarify the address you're using for the study. Response we received shows the full address. Perhaps it was an issue of the zip code being missing or something to that effect, but you can see how that process works. Next, we have the modifications tab. So this is where we house any changes that are made to the research after your initial approval. So you see examples of e-consent, recruitment materials, a change to the PI or research location. These are all in pre-submission status, so why don't we scroll down to one that's been completed. So you have one here that shows subject-facing materials. We'll click on that. And the record for the modifications, as well as any other type of submission that you make for the study, will appear similar to the study record itself, but will be specific to the type of application you're making. So you can go in and view how you responded to any of those questions on the application by selecting the edit modification application. And if you want to save a copy of your applications, you can click the print version button here, and then it'll have another pop-up screen which will allow you to print the application and save it to your desktop. You can do the same thing with the investigator application, which I'll show you in just a second, but it has the same tabs as the study record as well. You have the IRB issued documents, the history tab, as well as the attachments, which would be any documents that were uploaded as part of the application, and then any clarifications, and those clarifications are specific to that modification. So we have these breadcrumbs here at the top of the page. We can go back to the study record by clicking on the name of the PI. And next, we have the reportable events tab. It's going to be similar to the modifications tab, where these are submissions made by the site for a specific type of report. So this could be an SAE, protocol deviation, IND safety report, a DMC report, an unanticipated problem, an audit report, or serious noncompliance. In this demo account, we've only got one example, and it's an IND safety report. But if we go into it, you'll see that the record looks similar to the modifications tab, where it has all of the same navigation tabs, the type of report it is, and again, you can print a copy of the report or look at the responses to the application as they were made. And then finally, we have the continuing review / termination reports. So for most studies, annually, you'll be expected to submit a continuing review report. Those will appear here under this specific tab. And once you're ready to close out the study, the termination report will also show up under this specific tab. And the way that you would make any of these types of submission, be it a reportable event, a continuing review, or a modification, is by selecting one of these links here under these submission forms on the left-hand side of the page. So we have examples of modifications, continuing reviews, or different types of safety events. So what I'll do is I'll just go into an example of a modification. It's going to be kind of similar to the investigator application, but it's going to be specific to the type of application that you're submitting. So this is a modification, and you'll just indicate what type of modification you're submitting. Is it a revised consent form? Is it a new translation? Is it a research location? Is it a change to the investigator? Is it new recruitment material? We have a number of different options here. So for the sake of this demonstration, we'll just do recruitment material. Does this impact the informed consent? We'll say no. What is the current enrollment status of your site? For this example, we'll just say enrollment is open and subjects are enrolled. So we'll go continue. And then you'll be asked to upload a copy of the document. So we'll click the add button here. Is this recruitment material or is it subject facing? So what we mean by that is subject-facing materials aren't necessarily recruitment. So let's say you had questionnaires for your study that the subjects had to complete. That would fall under subject-facing material rather than recruitment. If it's an ad that you're planning to post on Facebook, then it would be a recruitment document. We then just ask for the naming convention you wish to use for that document, and then the type of material. Is this the first time you're submitting this material? You'd indicate new material. Have you previously submitted this material and has it been approved and this is a change to that material? It would be revised. Have you previously submitted a script to us for, say, like a radio ad, and now you're submitting the final format of that ad? So the completely produced version of that file would need to be submitted for review, and you'd indicate final format here. And then here we just ask for the type of material that's being submitted. And then here you upload the file itself. You'd hit OK. The file would then get uploaded. You go to the end of the application. You hit submit the application, hit continue. You get that same notification via email letting you know that the application has been received. I know we're running out of time, so I'm just going to go real quick to our reference materials tab. This is where all of our guidance documents are housed. So if you click this reference materials tab right here at the top of the page, you can click Advarra IRB reference materials. This is where we house our IRB handbook. We also have tip sheets, including information regarding e-consent. We have our board roster housed here. We also have our template consent forms, as well as a copy of the California Bill of Rights in a number of different languages. We also have a short form addendum. So if, say, you're using your institution's specific short forms, you're allowed to do that, but you would need to use the Advarra short form addendum. Won't really dive too deep into that, but essentially, if you're going to be using a short form that is not the Advarra short form, you want to make sure that you have some kind of documentation just verifying that Advarra is the IRB of record. And then we have quick notes or quick steps documents that we provide, which allow you to make any kind of application in Kirby. So these are essentially guidance documents for all of the different types of submissions. That includes what we've gone over via the modification submissions, investigator applications, safety reports, anything. We have a specific guidance document associated with any of those different types of submissions in the system. One document I just want to draw your attention to real quick is this last document here. I clicked over one page. It's at the bottom of the reference page, and it's on page 2. So you'll need to click over to access this document. It's our status definitions document. So when you are first using Kirby, you may see that your study moves into a status that may not make a lot of sense. So this document defines what is happening for your specific application based on the specific state. So we have pre-submission, as I indicated, is that it's an application that's been started but not submitted to Advarra yet, awaiting assignment, administrative review, designee review, post-review. So if it's in any of these states, you can open this document and see specifically what that state means for your specific application. It's a very useful tool. So with that said, this is Kirby. Are there any questions?